Hello everyone, this is Daisy. Welcome to this crochet along. In the previous video, I had completed the neck shaping, and in today's video, we're gonna be doing the sleeves. Before we get to that, I just wanted to tell you all what I had done off camera. So though I was happy with the shape of the neck, I felt it was a bit deeper than I expected it to be. So when I measured around the circumference, it was 24 inches. But according to my calculations, I wanted it to be 21 or 20 inches. So I ripped out only the last row, the very last row alone, and I redid it a little differently. I skipped the chain one space in between each cluster, and just by doing that I was able to reduce the neckline by 5 inches. It now measures only 19 inches. So the hook sizes are all the same as the previous video. Row 1 of the neck shaping is done in a 2.5 mm hook, and row 2 is done with the 2 mm hook. So that's what I did offline for the neckline. Now let's get to the sleeves. So this video is not going to be as chaotic as the neck, because for the neck I only had one chance to do it, so I had to film as I was experimenting. But for the sleeves, since we have two sleeves, I was able to experiment off camera, and now that I have decided what to do, I can just show you how I did it with the second sleeve. And by the way, in case you're wondering why I did not just leave it with the cap sleeves, though I thought it looked cute, I felt like the underarms were a bit more exposed than I wanted. So I decided to increase the length of the sleeve by just a couple of inches so that it would give me more coverage at the underarm area. So here's the right sleeve. I just made some small squares and I've attached them here to the edge of the sleeve. The first thing you want to do is count how many granny clusters you have along the open edge of the sleeve. So I was lucky because I have a number that's divisible by 3. So I have 9 granny clusters on each side. So 9 plus 9, I have a total of 18 granny clusters along my sleeve opening. So what I will do with that number is I'm going to divide that number by 3. So I have here the total number of granny clusters along the sleeve edge. So that's 9 in the front and 9 in the back. I have a total of 18. Now I don't want the sleeve to be increased too much, so I just want to make little squares that are 3 rows. So if I want to make small squares that are 3 rows each, I just want to divide it by that number. So 3 is the number of rows I want in each of my mini squares. So I'm going to take this number and divide it here, and that will give me a total of 6. So for each sleeve I will need 6 mini squares. You can do this however you want to. So obviously this number will be different for each of us depending on how many granny clusters you have. So it's not necessary you should go for 3 rows. If you want a very small border, you can go for even smaller squares. You can make 2-row granny squares. It'll look very cute, it'll be nice. You just need to have that number based on this. And even if your number is not divisible by 3 or anything else, you would definitely be having an even number, because the front and the back will have the same number of clusters, and you add it, you're going to end up with an even number. So you can always just do 2-row granny squares. I will leave that to you. You can decide how small or how big you want the sleeve to be. So I'm going to go with 6 squares that have 3 rows each. I decided that I want off-white to be the prominent color, so I will be using that color for the last row of the mini squares. I have already made 6 mini squares that have 2 rows each. using the 3 remaining colors from my color scheme, and I'm now going to join these mini squares using the continuous join as you go method. I will not be filming the smaller squares because it's just 2 rows of granny square. The only difference is that I've not turned after each row. Like I mentioned earlier, the smaller squares do not have the spiraling problem, and also the other thing I did differently was while working over the tails, I kept the tails behind the square instead of in front of the square. I'll anyway be showing you how I did that when I work over these corners. Once you have your mini squares ready, just arrange however you like and we can start. As you can see, each square is sort of a different combo, so it's completely random. If you're familiar with the join as you go method, you can actually skip this video and just join the squares to the sleeve edge. The rest of this video is for those who are not familiar with the join as you go method. So I've just laid out these squares. I will be making row 3 using this color, which is going to be my main color. The unique thing about the join as you go method is that you start the next row on one of the squares, but without completing that row on square 1, you go ahead and work on square 2. So you work incomplete rows on all of the squares and you're basically joining them as you go. This is an amazing technique which minimizes the number of tails that we will have. So this is the direction in which we'll be going. We'll go like this. So wait, I'm gonna use this contrasting piece of thread to show the direction in which we'll be working. So we will begin on this corner and go like this and work 3 sides on square number 1, and instead of finishing side 4, we will start working on square 2 and make 3 sides on square 2, and then repeat the same thing. Instead of working the 4th side on square 2, we will start working on square 3 and work 3 sides on square 3, and again skip that 4th side. We'll start working on the next square and work 3 sides on square 4, and we're just gonna repeat that for all of the other squares. And then when we finish the 3rd side for the last square, we will complete the 4th side for all of the squares by just working straight across. You see where the yarn is looping over here? What is happening here is we finish working side 3 on square number 1 and then switch to side 1 of square 2, right? So when we're doing side 1 of square 2, we will simultaneously be attaching it to side 3 of square 1. So in this place we will be joining these sides together. So when you do the whole thing, so all of these squares get attached to each other, and when you do this last side, we will it's kind of going to be like a rounded thing. So this side will get attached to this side, and not only that, you see this edge on going along the top, we're going to join that side to the sleeve edge as well. So by the time we finish row 3 on all the squares, we would have joined all the squares to each other, and then we would have also joined the mini squares to the sleeve edge, and the last side will just be one straight row of granny stitches. I'm not sure if that was very clear, but you will understand more as you see me working it. But as of now, this is all you need to understand. So we will start the last row. On each square, we will work 3 sides and then move on to the next square. So 3 sides on each square. That's what we're gonna do. So let me remove this. Keep them aside in the order that I want to attach them. So So I'm going to start joining to the sleeve at the armpit. So you want to place your top in such a way so that the armhole opening is to your left. So if you're right-handed, you need to be working like that. If you're left-handed, you will flip it over and do the opposite, because you'll be working like this. So for all the right-handed folks, this is how we're gonna work. So we want to keep the top in such a way so that the sleeve we're working on has the opening facing towards the left. So here's my very first square. I'm gonna join the new color just like I did for all of the other rows. Make a knot. Make a bow with the tail. I'm sure you guys have become experts at doing that by now. And begin the row with a chain 4. So all of this is exactly like the other rows. 1, 2, and 3. So since this is the last DC for this cluster, I'm going to insert my hook into that loop, making sure that my hook is going through that loop and not around it. So let's complete the rest of this side. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. So make another bow with this tail. Like I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure the bow is behind. So it's all the same, exactly the same as the previous video, just that the bow is behind and not in front of my work. Okay, so here we are. We have finished side 1 of square 1, and now I'm just gonna chain 1 for the corner, and instead of finishing that corner, I'm gonna go ahead and attach it to this place. So pull up this loop. It's kind of similar to how we did the join for this edge for the side seams. So I'm just gonna go into the yellow first and then pull this loop through and chain 1. I'm very sorry, I just noticed my camera is not focusing on. So pull up that loop and I'm gonna join it to the underarm. So I just made a slip stitch, and now we can finish this corner over here by making a DC cluster into that corner. 2 and 3. So this is the last DC for this cluster, so I'm going to make sure that my hook is going into that loop. Oopsie, I just made a chain 1 due to muscle memory. Okay, I'm gonna tighten this tail so that I can cut off that tail. Okay, so now as we continue to work this side, we're gonna keep joining this square to the side seam, sorry, to the sleeve edge. So pull up this loop, insert your hook into the next chain space in the sleeve edge, tighten the loop, pull through and chain one. This is very similar to what we did for the side seam. Work the next cluster along this side. And we need to join the next. Pull up the loop, insert your hook into the next chain one space, tighten that loop, pull through and chain one, into then one more daisy cluster into that last corner in this mini square. So that's the first daisy cluster for this corner, and since it's a corner we're going to need a chain too. So I'm going to make one chain first, pull up the loop, join it to the next chain one space in the sleeve, and then make that second chain one. So this is what we've done so far. So we started the first square, we've completed side one, and while making side two we have joined it to the sleeve edge. We are going to go ahead and make side three for this mini square. So side three is, no, it does not have any joining, you just have to make clusters along this side. So I'm not going slow, I'm going at regular speed. And three. So I've reached this place, so I'm gonna make a chain two, but we're not gonna finish this corner. So instead of making a second daisy cluster into the same corner, we are going to make a daisy cluster into mini square number 2. So here is my second square. So we're just going to make a granny cluster into that second square. So this is what the work looks like right now. So it kind of looks like this. And now here is what we're gonna do. So instead of making a chain one and doing a cluster into the next space, we are going to attach this square to this square in this place. So pull up the loop and go into that first chain space. So basically this is the very last chain one space we made in square number 1. So the last chain space of the previous square, pull that loop through and make a chain one. So this is how it looks now. And make a second daisy cluster on this side. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do the same thing again. Pull up that loop, insert your hook into this next chain one space, tighten that loop, pull through and make a chain one. And we're gonna do the same thing into this corner as well. So let's make a bow with the yarn tail first. So that is DC number 1. DC number 2 and number 3. And since we're in the corner, we need one extra chain one. I'm going to chain one first. And now instead of going into the chain one space in the corner of square one, I'm just going to go into the same space in the sleeve edge where we joined this square one. And I'm going to chain one. So this is what our work looks like right now. So we've made 3 sides on square one, and we've made 1 side on square 2. So we're going to go ahead and make 2 more sides on square 2 exactly in the same way. I think I'll show you this square and 1 more square and then finish the rest of it off camera. So we can complete this corner by making a second cluster. If you've never done this method before, it can get a little overwhelming, but just trust the process. And that's that last DC. And I'm going to go ahead and pull those tails snug so that I can trim the excess. So we're going to continue to join this side. So this is side 2 of square 2. We're going to join that to the sleeve edge. So insert your hook. So pull up the loop first, insert your hook into the next chain space, tighten that loop and pull it through and chain one. Once you get the hang of this is actually a very lovely method. So I'm making the last granny cluster along side 2 of square 2, and I'm going to chain one before pulling up that loop, insert the hook into the next chain space in the sleeve edge, tighten that loop, pull through and chain one. So I just wanted to mention one thing here. So each of your granny clusters should be lining up against each other. So 3 granny clusters on the mini square should line up with 3 granny clusters on the sleeve edge. You should be getting that right, because especially when you come to this corner, it can be very confusing. You might feel like you need to go attach it to the next chain space because you've already made a stitch in this, but please remember, we're not trying to line up the spaces with each other but the clusters. So you just need to, so each cluster will be against one cluster. So we're gonna do side 3 of square 2. It does not have anything fancy. I'm just gonna go at regular speed. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, 2 and 3. So I've reached the next corner, and again over here I'm just going to make a chain 2, and without completing this corner I'm just going to start working into the next square by making a cluster into that. So I think you're getting it by now. So again, On square 3, while making side 1, I will be attaching it to side 3 of square 2. So these two sides will sort of get stitched together, and when I work my way across side 2, I will be attaching it to the sleeve edge. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the next two sides off camera, and then I will come back and show you how I join it to this corner. So I've reached the last cluster of side 2 of square 3. So we are at this corner. So I'm just going to chain 1, pull up the loop. And it doesn't really matter which side you're gonna join it to. I'm just gonna attach mine to the yellow. And then we can complete this corner by making another cluster. So as of now, I've joined 3 squares. I'm going to go off camera and join the other 3 squares that I have left. I will meet you kind of over here when I'm doing the last mini square. I'll show you how I will be joining the last square to the first square. So I'm just going to pause my camera right now and go ahead, finish that, and come back, and I'll see you. Okay, so I have finished joining 2 sides of the last square, and I'm at this point where it kind of looks very weird and awkward. So this is the last granny cluster along this side. So the first thing you want to do is make a chain 1 and pull up that loop, and I'm now going to go into the green square, the space in the green. So it's sort of going into opposite sides here. So the first square went into this corner. The last square is gonna go into this corner. So and I'm not gonna go through like this. I'm gonna grab all of these stitches together, and I'm not gonna tighten this loop a lot. I want to keep it a little loose so that this corner does not look very squished up. And now that we've attached this corner, we can go ahead and do the next cluster into this corner. 1, 2, 3. And here's what we're gonna do now. So as we're working this side, we're gonna attach this side to side 1 of square 1. Two and 3. Pull up the loop, attach it with the next chain 1 space. 1, 2 and 3. For the corner, we always chain 1 first, and this is what we will have here. So we have this chain 4 that we made at the beginning of this row. So this is the beginning of side 1 of square 1. This is where we started. So you still have this tail that we haven't tightened. So I'm going to insert my hook into this chain 4 space and then attach it over here like this. So we have successfully attached all of these mini squares to each other and to the sleeve edge. Now all that is left to do is finish this row by making 1 round of granny square around this edge, and by doing that we'll be doing the fourth side of all of the square. So basically we're doing side 4 of the square, side 4 of the square, so on and so forth. I'll just show you one square so that you can see what I do when we reach this corner. So we are here right now. Make one cluster, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, next cluster, 1, 2, 3, chain 1. So next cluster for me is this corner, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1. So a lot of people get confused when they reach this side. They think because there's a space here they need to make another cluster in this corner, but that's not right, because we are sort of replicating this corner on this side, so it should look like this. So you just want to make a slip stitch into that chain 2 space and then make a chain 1. Right, so let me remove that and show you one more time slowly. So here is the cluster in this corner. So we're just going to do a chain 1, slip stitch and chain 1. So chain 1, slip stitch and chain 1, and then make a cluster into the next corner in the next square. So please remember, we will not be making a cluster into this space. So let's make this cluster, 1, 2, and 3. So this is how this corner is supposed to look. So the rest of this row is very straightforward. You'll just be making granny clusters in each chain 1 space and corner, and when you reach this space you will just make a chain 1, slip stitch and chain 1. So I will go off camera, finish this row. I will meet you at the end of this row. So we've reached the end of this row. We're going to complete this partial granny cluster we have here, and like always we're going to make sure we insert the hook into that loop so that we can lock it in place. And when we are doing that last granny cluster, we only make 2 DCs and then slip stitch into that chain 4 space. And we can now pull this tail tight. And that brings us to the end of this row, and technically speaking the top as well. So I'm gonna leave a long tail, cut that off. And to finish off this edge, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make an invisible stitch over here. So invisible stitch is basically you sew in the tails in such a way that you mimic a crochet stitch, but it's actually not a crochet stitch. So I have my tail here. The first thing I'm going to do is remove this slip knot or the slip stitch that I made before I fastened off, and pull this tail through. So I have the top of the previous DC here. So I hope you can see that. There, so here's the top of the first, second and third DC, and I'm just pull that tail so that it's coming out through the top of that last DC. And now let's thread the needle. And I'm going to go into, I'm going to make the invisible stitch through this next stitch. So invisible stitches basically mimic the two bars that you have, the front loop and back loop on top of every stitch. So it's coming, the yarn is coming out of the last stitch, and we're going to go into both the front and back loop of this next stitch here, pull through, and then we're going to go back right into the same place where that tail came out in the first place. And what that will do is it will mimic the front and back loop. So this is the stitch that we just made. That's the invisible stitch. So you can just see two loops right across. You will not see any visible knot. So that's the whole point of this method, in case you're wondering why we're taking the trouble of doing this. And once I'm done with that, I'm just gonna weave all the way into this cluster. I'm gonna go through all of those loops, pull the yarn. Always make sure you're not pulling too tight. You don't want to distort the stitches, and you don't want to go back into that same space again. Skip one loop so that this tail can lock in place. Now I'm gonna go to all the way to the other side of this cluster. And I'm gonna go back one more time. So again the same thing, I'm not gonna go into the same bunch of stitches. I'm gonna skip one loop and then go through all of these other stitches so that this tail will lock in place. So if I did not do that, if I didn't skip one loop, when I pull my tail, it'll just come back through the other side. So that's why we skip one loop. So this is what the sleeve looks like. Now you can use the same method and also increase the length of the top by attaching additional mini squares at the bottom edge. But since I'm happy with the length of the top, I will not be doing that. So I'm leaving it as it is. So that brings us to the end of this project. So thank you all for trusting me and trusting the process. I cannot wait to see all your finished tops. I will be adding the cal as a pattern on Ravelry. So if you guys have a Ravelry account, please do create a project and link it to the cal. So do check out my Ravelry project as well. I will leave the link in the description box. So I would have included all of my pattern notes, my project notes. So if you check it out, you can see how extensively I use Ravelry. I'll be adding in more details about exactly how much yarn I used and things like that. So yes, do add your projects to Ravelry if you have an account. If you don't have a Ravelry account, I would suggest you should start one. Go check out my Ravelry project. You'll know why, because I use Ravelry to track everything. Do go check out my Ravelry project. You will understand what I mean by I use it very extensively. So that's that. And a few of you had asked me about how to block the top and how I wash it and things like that. So there will be one last video where I will go through the blocking process. So that will officially be the last video for this video series. So that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video where I will show you how to block the project. Bye.